Welcome back to your Sprinkle with Hope podcast and your host, Jason. And today we have an amazing guest on our show, Walker Brandt. She talks a lot about just how to deal with trauma. She dealt with her own as a child, and she used nature and animals and things like that to help kind of overcome some of that trauma. And then, of course, she's just moving forward with some just really great content and stuff out there in the world. So I really listen in and listen to what she has to say.
Such a great guest, and really somebody who's changing the world. Not only should you listen to this podcast, but follow Walker. She does great and amazing things in the world. She has a book that we talk about and an upcoming thing that she's launching. So super grateful, and hopefully you listen in.
Welcome to the Sprinkled with Hope podcast.
Welcome back to your Sprinkle with Hope podcast and your host, Jason. And we are so excited today to welcome our guest, Walker Brandt, with us. And so cool. This has just been a one that's been circled on my calendar and Shane's calendar as well for just a long time. And so excited to be able to talk to you. If you don't know Walker and kind of her background, she's an actress and done many movies like Dante's Peak back in my childhood, my teenage years, watching that movie and City Slickers and all those just really cool movies, as well as Star Trek and Beverly Hills 90210, right? Yeah. But one of the things that kind of stuck out to me is that at 12 years old, you started your own business as a horse trainer and a horse exerciser. Let's talk about that for a little bit. That's really cool.
Awesome. Well, yes, I think you're the first person to ask me about that. I love that you did. So, I actually, the very first business I started was at 7, walking my neighbor's dogs.
Oh, cool.
But yes, I always love horses and animals in general. I spend a lot of time in nature and connect with animals, and horses for me just represented such grace and beauty, trust and freedom. And so I just had this connection with them because, most people don't know that horses are a prey animal. Their eyes are on the sides of their head. We're a predator. Our eyes are in front. And they just allow us to jump on their back and carry us, and they're beautiful to look at. And so wherever we lived, I always found animals or horses. And so when I was really little, we lived in Painted Cave in this little place in little community up in Santa Barbara.
Okay. And
there weren't any horses. Well, there were some horses at a big ranch, so I would go hang out with them. But I didn't work with those horses because I was too little. So I did the dog thing. If I can't do them, I'll do the smaller versions because horses are kind of big dogs anyway. So I walked a bunch of dogs, and that was my first business. And then we moved to Central California, and I went hunting for horses again. And so I started riding our neighbors' horses, anyone I could find. And I started training. They were like, well, this horse is a little, wild and doesn't really like people and doesn't really behave very well. And I was like, sounds great. I'll take that horse because guess what? I'm a little wild. My parents say I don't behave very well. I don't really follow the rules. I got to do my own thing. And I'm kind of, I've kind of that way myself. I think I get this animal. And so inevitably, I just always connected with those horses that people felt were unmanageable. And my technique was, I would just hang out with them. I would just hang out and not jump on their back right away. I would walk with them for a really long time, like weeks, like a dog. And I would just hang out. And when they trusted me and I felt that connection where I would show up and they would walk straight to me, and wherever I walked, they walked with me. That's when I got on my horse. That's when I started riding. And it changed the horse's personality completely, because usually when a horse misbehaves, it's about trust. It's about having been, it's not the animal, it's the person that they've been exposed to, because horses generally, unless it's a wild Mustang, even wild Mustangs, like if you follow Monty Roberts' work, he does this thing called join up, which I didn't know that's what I was doing as a child, but essentially it's the same thing. I just allowed the horse to join me in their own time. And that's what he teaches people is not to dominate the horse. Let the horse come and join with you. And there's certain behaviors horses do. And I didn't really know what they were technically, but I knew instinctually that when a horse was licking their lips, that they were submitting and they were being trusting, and when I turned my back and the horse came up to me, they were saying, hey, I like you. I want to come near you. I want to join with you. I want you to be part of my scene, my group, my herd. And so I was doing it without realizing it. And guess what? He lived not too far from where I lived as well, in Santa Barbara, which was a trip. So energy, I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we do attract the things that we want, right? And I think there's some merit to that, you know, we put that energy out in the world, and that's probably what those animals were gathering from you, is that energy, the love that you had for that animal. Not, you know, you're not there to harm them and do those kinds of things. And what a cool things. And that was at a young age, right? I mean, you were 12 at the time, right?
Yeah, 11, 12. Yes, exactly. I never felt fear from animals. In fact, I felt more fear from people than I did from animals. So when I get around animals, I just, even now, it's just kind of my nature. I was essentially raised in such a natural environment with a lot of wild animals around, little rodents and snakes, and there were mountain lions, but fortunately I didn't see any close up. But you know, we were in the mountains, so I was taught not to be afraid of animals. I was taught to, you know, to sort of hang out with them and respect them, from tarantulas to, you know, to snakes, to rattlesnakes, whatever it was. I just didn't fear. And little, you know, chipmunks and just, you know, anything, birds, prey. I always, and, you know, salamanders, whatever it was, I just felt that I was a part of them. And if I treated them in that way, that they would trust me. And I was longing for that acceptance myself, that sort of community and that tenderness. And so I just reflected what I wanted, and I received it. I received it back.
That's beautiful. So do you still today kind of work with horses and animals, or?
I haven't in years.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I have animals, but I haven't in years because my work became so busy. I took years off of, as an actress, years, like 2.5 years. I bought another horse and started, well, I went out to a ranch. I just wanted to hang out. Just a quick little story of it. I've been practicing yoga for over 20 years. And one of my teachers had a horse, and I was in a bit of a crazy relationship, and I was working, and I was just under a lot of pressure. And she said, oh, I have a horse. His name's Magic. I would love for you to meet my horse. And so I went out, and she was like, you know, wow. So you obviously have been around horses. Oh yeah, spent a lot of time with horses, but I was working and traveling for 10 years straight. So I really didn't have time to, and I know what it takes to have a horse. It's a daily commitment. It's a part of your family. And so I did not allow myself to have a horse while I was never home and working so much. But I loved that experience with her horse. It opened something up, and it made me realize I need this again. And so she asked me to work with her horse, and I started working. Another lady saw me working and lunge lining with her horse and said, oh my gosh, can you please work with my horse? My daddy gave it to me. And she was a lady in her 40s. She was like, my daddy gave it to me. He has a huge ranch in Oklahoma. This is a cutting horse. And she is the granddaughter of a world champion racehorse. And I am terrified of her. She was my dad's. She's amazing, but she's too powerful for me. And so I started working with her. And I totally related with her. Her name was Missy, Miss Investorette. Hi, Shane.
Hi.
I'm happy you're here.
Yeah.
Yay. And so anyway, so she gave me her horse. She literally said, I am never going to be on this horse like you. I'm never going to connect with this horse like you. I'm terrified of her. And I don't know if I'm ever going to get over it. And this horse is obviously your horse. She came out here to be with you. So, yeah. And so I had a horse, and I kept my horse boarded in Malibu for years. And that's where I spent 2 years. I took time off and I rode. And I rode all through those 3,000 miles. And I worked with a lot of different
Wow.
horses there. So yeah.
That's awesome. What a cool story.
Yeah, it was amazing. I love it. And I'm around horses when I get a chance, but I don't own a horse right now. We've got way too much going on for me. But yes, thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Shane, you got a question for Walker?
I see your book behind you, Awaken. Is that right? Can you talk a little bit about that, why you wrote it, what it's about, and fill us in on that?
Absolutely. It's called Awaken, Discovering Yourself Through the Light of Your Innocence. And I wrote it because I was challenged by a woman I met that said, my story doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the person it will help. And I thought that was a powerful thing to, it impacted me. And I thought, oh, wow. Okay. And I was shy about sharing my story. I had created a lot of success in the industry and in my, whatever I pursued, but I hadn't shared my story. Nobody knew I came from an alcoholic family. Nobody knew the violence I grew up with. Nobody knew any of that. They had this image of who I was.
Right.
And at the time, for the time that I made my mark in the industry in the 90s, it really wasn't a time that was very kind to women in general, but to these kinds of stories. I was wary of sharing it. I didn't want it to overtake my work, overcome my life, right? And I had spent so much time working through my own issues so I could create success. From a little girl in nature taught me that where you come from doesn't have to be your legacy. You have an unlimited world out there. It doesn't recognize the limitations that you may feel from your home or people around you. It does not recognize that. You make the limitations. And I always saw this just love and grace out there in this unlimited, wonderful, imaginative world that I could be or do anything I wanted. And so, and I could literally go from having a difficult experience at home, go out in the nature and rewrite my whole emotional path. If I was hurt, mad, upset, nature, it raised me up. It gave me that, that divine grace that creation gives us, that love that we all seek, I think, and that acceptance. And so there was Lisa Nichols that said that to me. And so
cool.
Yeah, she's amazing. And so I said, okay. And it was a time I knew I had been getting these feelings that I needed to do something else, that I needed to contribute something else. And that I had to be courageous in this way too, not just in the ways that I knew to be courageous, but that I had to be courageous here. I had to go full circle. Couldn't have this little area, that I wasn't sharing only with my, immediate family, friends. So I downloaded, literally just opened myself up, and boy, 2019, end of 2018, 19, it just started pouring out. And she also said something that was really beautiful too. She said, write the story only you can write, and write, if you're sharing something that you've been through that's traumatic and painful, write it in such a way that the people that hurt you most can sit in the front row with their dignity intact. And, when you read my book, you sense and see, I discuss some of our family legacies that are very serious and difficult to have lived through, but I don't go into the finite details. You can tell by the one big impacting experience in my life when my grandmother died that, and the fact that I spoke about who the people are, you could imagine and use your imagination to guide you through and understand. Didn't need to go through that. And it took a long time going through my personal development to recognize that. And I had reached that point prior to that, but not to the degree where she made me season it inside and really think, okay, is there a part of me that needs to blame anyone? Is there a part of me that needs to, spotlight anyone because I'm still hurt. What do I need to heal? And writing that book worked me through those little bits that were hanging on. And it was a beautiful experience to write it in that way. It was like a culmination of all the personal training and development work that I had been doing since I was a teenager to heal through what I had witnessed and experienced, and some of the choices that I made as a result of that. So it was beautiful. And I encourage everyone, if you don't want to write a book and publish it, don't publish it, but write your story down, because you're amazing. And what you've lived through, you never know, because even your child, their child, they'll discover it at the time they need to. And it would be such a beautiful gift to give. And we just don't do that as often as we need to. Our kids, our parents leave and we long to know who they were and what they lived through. So let's give that gift. And
Wow, that's beautiful. And Walker, seriously, thank you for being you and being your authentic self. I think that's really, really important. Sometimes putting ourselves out there and just being us and being vulnerable, right, is a difficult thing to do. Brene Brown talks about that a lot, being vulnerable and opening ourselves up to those things that may hurt us or but not giving power to it, right? And that's what it sounds like that whole book is about, is just your story, who you are, your journey through that. What a beautiful thing.
That's exactly what it is. And the light, discovering yourself through the light of your innocence. That innocence is what we have when we're a child. We go out there and we are fully vulnerable, fully discovering, explore, engaging everything. We want to know what it is, right up to the fire, touch it. Ooh, that burned. We are so in our innocence. And I think that being in touch with that is how we really heal deeply. And that's what that's about, is I heal myself from the light of my innocence. No matter what I'm looking at that I may have been through or whatever I was healing, I would always go to the innocence that was there, and the innocence that is there. And once I deal with the hurt of it that was bruised, that, may have been afraid to come out, it's always that light that connects us to God, to all creation, that we can pull on to heal. And I just believe it's a huge superpower that we have. And when we go there to that innocence, we heal like children do. You know how you can be just like, let's just like think about kids for a second. You're in a classroom, you're like 6 or 7 years old, even 5. Somebody says something to you, you get upset, you get hurt, you cry, and you just go through all those genuine emotions. And then the person comes up to you and says, or the bell rings, and you want to come play with me? Sure. Let's go play. That's what kids do naturally. And we get older and we forget to do it. But we have the same luxury.
Right.
We have the same capacity. We can just forgive, have compassion, let go, and, be that sincere as kids are.
Yeah.
And
you know what? It's a great point. And I can think of some childhood friends of mine that, we'd get mad at each other and we'd fight and wrestle or whatever. And then afterwards we're like, hey, let's go get a popsicle, and everything's good. Right.
Yeah. They trusted their vulnerability, and we just somehow forget to trust our vulnerability. But it's, as you know, Brene Brown talks about that. And, and as an actor, it's our superpower is our vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And so I was like being really vulnerable and being totally, when I'm in a role and preparing for a role, I'm all in, and I love that. That's what I was drawn to, is that vulnerability. But I was like fractured inside because I was keeping this other part of me very private and quiet. And it wasn't as well, I would only show it in the roles. So I would struggle, like a lot of actors will talk about struggling in auditions and struggling with, that part of the process and the business part of it, and, because that's where I had to be me. But you have me be this role, and it's like, I'm all in, full vulnerability, I'm there. But this, you want me to go in and like be me around these people, like me authentically around them? Can't I just go in as the person? But no, they want to see you, and so it was really film and TV, the theatrical side of it is where it was most challenging for the business. Commercials and even though I did a lot of stuff and I got past it, but it was challenging for me. And I knew that there was something I needed to work through. There was just something I needed to get through. And it came when it came. It was a timing that was right for me to finally just, put that part of the quilt in and see it for what it was. And yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful image.
Yeah, I love how you talked about the light. To me, the image was that you might have this darkness behind you, but if you open more of the light and let the light in, it removes the darkness that we can't see. We can see the light and those things that are ahead of us. The darkness is still going to be behind us, but we're focusing on that light. Walker, I love your work. I love the things that you're doing. Are there things that you're working on that we can help promote and talk about now?
Absolutely. Well, I just finished the audiobook for Awaken, and I'll
cool.
send you the link I have a free chapter offer right now. So people that are listening, if you want a free chapter, I'll send you the links so you can offer that. And we're just preparing. I just got over COVID, as you guys know. I think didn't tell you. Yeah. So that's why I had to reschedule. But so I finished it, and we finished production and had to go through the post-production stuff. But I was sick, so I couldn't really focus on it. It was like, wow, that was an interesting experience. But yeah, but it's gone, and I feel great, and all is well. So we're just getting that organized, the whole launch of it, and I am beginning a program that's called Awaken Your Irresistible. And what my program helps people, and primarily, I work with women, but I have worked with men as well. And it's been really special because what my goal is, and what is to wake that up within everyone, to remember your irresistible is in there. That's who you are. It is directly created to that light. Where did you start putting the umbrella over it? Let's find what that is. And then let's shine it. Let's just get it out there and open it up so that you can feel it again. And that's what I find that I tend to do. It helps people. And that's like, what's so interesting is they're like, oh, I should be, I thought about doing that. I'm going to do that now. I thought about doing that in my 20s. I don't know why I didn't do that, and it's so beautiful to see, because basically I just reflect back. We're all reflectors to each other. I see what somehow gets hidden by what we've been influenced with, how we perceive things, how we look at ourselves. I see right through it. And I just see the irresistible. And so I just reintroduce it and love seeing what happens. And so that's a program that I'm working on right now. And I've kind of just done it with people randomly. I haven't actually launched it yet, but I'm
oh, cool.
Yeah. So people have just kind of word of mouth. So it's been one of those things. And so it's mainly my audiobook. That's coming. And the rest of it, I'll just send you a note and let you know.
Awesome. I love it.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like you got great things in the works. And so we would be happy to promote that and put that out there in the world.
Thank you. Thank
you. Walker, one of the cool things that Shane and I do towards the end of our podcast, we do a thing called the Double Down Dose. And it's 2 questions that we ask pretty much every guest that we've had on our show. And they're pretty simple, but might be difficult to answer. And the first question to the Double Down Dose is, what is your definition of hope?
Hope for me is when we look at ourselves and we recognize that we have a choice, and that whatever we're thinking or feeling is temporary. And we take responsibility for moving through and forward, whatever it is that may be weighing on us. It's the gift we give ourselves.
Love it.
Yeah, beautifully said. We love asking these questions just to give a little more depth to what we think. Often we hear the word hope and we don't really think about what it means to us. So the second part of the Double Down Dose is how would you define love?
I define love as first compassion for yourself and your unique amazingness of who you are. Because once you have that, you will give it to others. and you will reflect it into the world around you, and you really feel the love that we are made of and that we are. And yeah, love for me is compassion and self-awareness, loving self-awareness, because it's just so lovely when you can look at yourself in the mirror, no matter what you've been through, no matter what you may think of yourself, and say, I got you. You're exactly the way you're meant to be. And I'm really glad that I'm you. And I want to learn more about you and accept more about you. That's kind of like a conversation that I have. And I find love expanding from that conversation of acceptance and compassion for myself. And I see people just suddenly coming in that have, you know, have a similar mindset. And it's beautiful to see the shift in people when you have that, and maybe they don't, and they just needed to see it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Lovely. I love it. I mean, Shane and I, we love to talk about hope and love, and the world needs more of those things. We need more hope, more love towards each other, not less. Right. And so I love that, those two visuals that you gave us about hope and love. You know, I got to ask you, because I see in the background, you have Napoleon Dynamite little statue or whatever there. And I got to ask about it, because I love Napoleon Dynamite. The movie is just hilarious and it cracks me up every time. So what's your favorite thing about Napoleon Dynamite? And you have that, why you have that little statue?
And you notice he's right next to Buddha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's like social Buddha. He's so funny. I think my favorite thing about Napoleon is, yeah.
You do that great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. So good. And
just the eyes, you know, Napoleon, you know, what I love about Napoleon is Napoleon.
Yeah.
And he represents being authentically yourself.
Yeah.
And just the dance.
Oh,
are you kidding? The dance? We all just do that in high school.
Seriously.
And just so you guys know, I was.
Oh yeah, Deb. I love it.
That's awesome.
I wore my hair, it was so long, in a ponytail on the side of my head. And when I saw her, I was like, I used to make those little bracelets too. Oh my gosh, I'm her. That's me. Oh my gosh. It was so, I mean, that's what I love about it, is they touched on so many of our lives. We knew people like him.
Oh, totally.
I mean, it was like, and all that wackiness we are in high school, we're not allowing ourselves to actually see ourselves because we're all trying to fit into some kind of weirdness. But they just showed everything we're trying to fit into, everything we're doing, the whole thing. And it was so beautiful. So I love Napoleon. And it actually says his like 6 or 7 great lines, like,
oh, awesome.
yeah, like, those are my tots, you know, all of that. Or, are you an idiot? You know, is that one too? And my husband and I, we have so much fun because sometimes we'll have like a discussion. You know, we have a lot of discussions, but sometimes it's perfect timing. We'll have this crazy discussion and we're both like, all right, I don't know. I don't know what to say. And he'll go, what does Napoleon have to say? He goes over and he hits it, or I'll hit it. And he'll go, you're an idiot.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
That's awesome.
I had to ask because, you know, I'm a huge Napoleon Dynamite fan. So.
Well, there you go.
Great stuff. Walker, seriously, thank you so much for your time and for all the things that you do. I have really enjoyed following your career, the length of that, and really appreciate all that you do to make the world better. Keep doing you, and we'll support you any way we can. So thank you so much.
Oh, what a beautiful thing. Thank you, Shane. And thank you, Jason. You too. Anything I can do, let's reciprocate. I would love to. And we will be posting. We do a whole promo thing when I do podcasts. So thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your scene and your podcast and sharing space with you. I wish you all the best and have a wonderful rest of summer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Walker.
All righty.